car. So he said between seatbelts being buckled, they said some of the damage, the steering wheel was bent badly, which meant someone had to be sitting there. And between them not purchasing the full self-driving option, not really possible for them to have no one in the driver's seat. Yeah, you're right. Tesla, they had a breakout quarter, much better than a lot of analysts were expecting. Some of this was due to crypto, but either way, they still did much better. So welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys are having a great day. We go live every single day for my show, 9 a.m. Eastern time. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe, like the video down below. We talk about tech news, the stock market, and cryptocurrencies. Tesla just posted a record-breaking quarter, net income of $438 million, revenue surged by 74%. A lot of this was due in some part to cryptocurrency because they bought about $1.5 billion in crypto. Earlier in the year, they sold some of that. We'll get into that a little bit more later. But anyways, Tesla, they just reported their first quarter results for 2021 in their earnings call. The company beat expectations by a lot. Earnings were 93 cents per share versus 79 cents per share, which were expected. The revenue was about $10.39 billion versus $10.29 billion. This is up 74% from just a year ago. And this is pretty impressive considering like they had 0 new Model S, Model X vehicles produced in the first quarter. They had a couple thousand deliveries, about 2,000 delivered from old inventory, but they had no new Model S or Model X vehicles produced. So this was pretty impressive considering they're not even running at full capacity. Right now, they delivered 184,800 vehicles first quarter of 2021. Most of them were like Model 3, Model Y. They were those vehicles, the Model S, Model X, really barely anything. In the earnings call, they explain how the Model S sedans will finally be delivered to customers in early May of 2021, sometime in May of 2021. So it should be coming out very soon, which is great news. A lot of people have been waiting a really long time for this. So it's about time that they get these actually out to customers. And they said they're going to start, their goal for the rest of 2021 is to start producing 2,000 Model S and Model X vehicles per week later this year. So they're trying to get that ramped up, trying to get this starting to get off the production line because they haven't been able to do anything with these vehicles in a little while, and they're expecting about 750,000 vehicles this year, total deliveries. A lot of people were expecting they might be able to get to 1 million, but it doesn't look like that's the case. They projected about 50% year-over-year growth, which means they were at 500,000 last year, so 750,000 this year. Another thing to keep in mind is their revenue from their energy generation, energy storage business nearly doubled for Tesla versus the same period in 2020. And this is pretty big. Revenue is doing pretty well in this section of the business. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that they have had a lot of issues with their Tesla solar panels, Tesla solar roof. There have been a couple issues there, which I'll go over in a bit as well. Either way, though, they had a much better quarter than people were expecting. Actually, pretty surprising considering they're not really running at full capacity with all of their factories. One thing that has been holding them back is that deliveries, unit sales grew 100% year over year, but service centers only grew by 28% year over year, and mobile service fleet only grew by 22% year over year. So like the service aspects of the business are growing a lot slower than the total number of sales. So this really shows that this is why people are having a lot of delays, having a lot of trouble when something goes wrong, because service expansion simply isn't able to keep up with how fast they're getting the vehicles off the factory line. So if they're selling, 100% more every single year, but their service centers, the fleets to help you with your vehicles are only growing at 20%, well, you're going to run into a problem eventually. And basically now they're just trying to catch up with everything. But speaking of Tesla, their Bitcoin purchase actually helped them quite a bit in turning a profit this past quarter and contributed a lot to their balance sheet because they purchased about $1.5 billion of Bitcoin earlier in the year, and I believe in February of this year. And since that purchase, Bitcoin has nearly doubled in price, more than doubled in price. And according to their reports, they said they sold about $272 million of digital assets in the first quarter. So they did like a quick turnaround. They bought about $1.5 billion. They sold off $272 million of that, but probably, it nearly doubled. So they just sold some of that contributed to their balance sheet. It reduced operating expenses on the statement of operations. So that was good. And they said really that this sale of Bitcoin contributed to about $101 million, of $101 million of positive impact on their balance sheet. So this is pretty good. You can't count on this every single quarter, but Bitcoin has been doing very well. They still own, a lot of Bitcoin. They only sold 272 million. They bought about 1.5 billion. So they probably have around, 2.5 to $3 billion of Bitcoin, depending on when they sold off that 272 million. Either way, though, according to Tesla, they said that Bitcoin has proved to be a pretty good decision for them. Like, at first, they were looking for a place to put cash that they weren't using at the moment so they could maybe make a return on their money. They said that Bitcoin has been a place where they could easily put the money into, easily access it if they need that capital, and it has produced a significant return for them. So now they have a lot more money than they had before. If they ever need to liquidate it, it's very easy to do. And they said, even though they sold off about $272 million, they're still intending on holding it long term. They just probably did this to help boost up and help with their balance sheet. But other than that, they said their intentions are to hold Bitcoin long term. Maybe they'll diversify into other cryptocurrencies, but right now they have all of their crypto holdings in Bitcoin. Elon Musk, he said that Tesla made significant mistakes with their solar roof project, and this has been pretty evident lately because a lot of people have been very disappointed with Tesla's solar roof, Tesla solar panels, because prices have continued to increase over time. People sign contracts and they get notified that it's going to double in price almost. And then in addition to this, people have been waiting for months and months, and the timeline keeps getting pushed back. So there have been a lot of issues with it. And during a recent earnings call, Elon Musk came out and said that the company has made significant mistakes in its solar roof tile project that have led to further cost overruns, further delays, and since the project was first revealed back in 2016, they thought they would have this up and running a lot faster, but they have run into just some major issues. They're still struggling to meet demand because there's been a significant demand increase for their solar roof, but they've yet to widely roll out the product. People who did have already ordered one recently, there was a lot in the news because Tesla increased the prices significantly. People logged into their Tesla accounts. They saw that, for example, one person, the roof was supposed to be $70,000. Now it was $120,000. So people have seen, nearly 2x the price. And while Tesla is refunding all of these people that maybe can't afford it anymore, don't want to pay that much, they've run into a lot of issues and people are not so happy about this. In Q1 of 2021, they sold about $494 million worth of their energy generation, energy storage products, so their solar roofs, power walls, things like that. But either way, they still have run into a lot of different issues, and they said the biggest problem was assessing the difficulty of certain roofs. Elon Musk, he explained how complexity of roofs vary. Some roofs, while the design is pretty simple, they may not end up being actually strong enough to hold the Tesla solar tiles or solar panels, and that could lead to a 2 or 3x price increase because you can't just put solar panels, solar tiles on a roof that can't support it. Then everything's going to come crashing down. So that's been one of the biggest issues, figuring out how difficult it's going to be for each roof, because they said each roof, even though it may look the same, it may have a lot of the similar aspects, each roof is very different. So that's been what has really contributed to a lot of their price increases, because they didn't really expect that at first. So either way, we'll see what happens here, but they're starting to get a lot of this figured out. Elon Musk and Tesla, they said now when you buy a Tesla solar panels or a solar roof, it has to be combined with a power wall. So they're trying to, work out some of the kinks right now that they've been having with this portion of their business, trying to make it a little more streamlined. And they believe now they're starting to get there. They made this into a package deal, power wall and solar panels or solar roof. And now they're starting to, get this rolled out a little bit more. Tesla recently came out and claimed that someone was actually in the driver's seat in one of the deadly crashes in Texas just a little while ago. So recently there was a big crash in Texas that involved a Tesla vehicle. And law enforcement came out, and immediately after that happened, they said, look, there was 100% no one sitting in the driver's seat of the vehicle, and there was no one there. But Tesla, they were also there at the investigation. They looked into this, and now they completely contradicted what local law enforcement said. And they said all seatbelts were found unbuckled in the car. And they said that Tesla's driver assist system, their autopilot, can only operate when the seatbelts are buckled. And in addition to this, they said that while, some people are claiming that Tesla vehicles can be easily tricked to work in autopilot, one of the biggest things is they said that this vehicle that was involved in the crash, this one didn't have autopilot engaged, nor had the vehicle owner actually even purchased the company's full self-driving option that may have allowed them to use autopilot on local roads in the first place. So what he's saying is they have never even purchased the full self-driving option for the vehicle. So really wasn't possible for there to be no one sitting behind the driver's seat in the car. So he said between seatbelts being buckled, they said some of the damage, the steering wheel was bent badly, which meant someone had to be sitting there. And between them not purchasing the full self-driving option, not really possible for them to have no one in the driver's seat. So completely contradicted what local law enforcement said. We'll see what happens. This isn't the first time Tesla's come out, made some, pretty big claims about crashes that have gone on. But they're able to look into the data log, see what has been happened. Data logs were recovered already. So that's what they said is going on with this crash. Pretty big, though. We'll see what comes out of this. Hopefully, they can prevent these things from happening again, but it's impossible. There's always going to be crashes with all vehicles, all car companies out there. Just with Tesla, it always starts to come into play. Was it autopilot? Was a person driving? So like with a normal vehicle, that doesn't always come into play. So a little more controversy around Tesla and that. Toyota, they just bought Lyft's autonomous car division for $500 million. This comes pretty recently after Uber recently sold off their autonomous car division. They sold theirs off to a company called Aurora, which was a startup founded by the former head of Google's self-driving project. And it seems like a lot of these companies are starting to offload their autonomous vehicle projects. Seems like they're too expensive. Lyft says that by selling this off, they're going to be saving $100 million of non-GAAP expenses every single year. When Uber sold theirs off, they said that they would be saving hundreds of millions of dollars a year as well, because really, these are really large projects where they're spending, millions of dollars every year in research and development, and they're not generating any revenue yet. These are like long-term projects, and especially for like companies like Uber and Lyft, they've been struggling a lot recently, especially with the pandemic, and they didn't have enough people riding. Now, after the pandemic, they've had trouble getting enough drivers. So they've been struggling quite a bit. And because of this, they can't afford to just spend that much money every single year on researching, developing, and using, spending resources on this autonomous vehicle project. They need to work on actually getting their drivers, getting everything functioning the way it was before the pandemic. So this is a big announcement. Toyota has been a little quiet in terms of their work on autonomous vehicles. They've made a lot of different investments over the year in a couple different AV projects, but this is really one of their biggest ones, and it's a pretty big deal buying this from Lyft, because down the road they said that with this acquisition, what they're doing down the road, they're hoping to be able to use like Lyft's fleet data and platform for any commercial service that they may offer. So down the road, if they launch this as a fully commercial business where people can use autonomous vehicles, they're going to be able to use Lyft's platform and fleet data for any of their commercial services down the road. So that's a pretty big deal. Now let's talk about Jeff Bezos. So Jeff Bezos' company, Blue Origin, his space rocket company, they just announced that they're protesting NASA's $2.9 billion moon contract with SpaceX. So This was a pretty big deal because what happened was NASA was having a bit of a competition between three different companies, between Blue Origin, which is Jeff Bezos' company, between SpaceX, which is Elon Musk's company, and between another company called Dynetics. And essentially, there was these three companies working on a project that would, down the line, be NASA's go-to company for space travel to the moon. And what happened was, about a year ago, NASA gave out about $900 million in funding to these three companies to allow them to build prototypes, start work on what NASA was looking for. And at the end of the year, they awarded a winner. They were supposed to give it out to two winners. When they first announced this competition, they said they were going to be selecting two winners. It would help promote competition, things like that. But what they ended up doing is they selected solely SpaceX, which was a big surprise because they only selected one winner when they had always said they would select two because they wanted competition. In addition to this, SpaceX got the least amount of funding from NASA in that first sort of round of the competition. Blue Origin got the most funding, over $500 million in funding. Tesla got less than $200 million. So SpaceX got the least amount of funding out of that initial round. So this is a pretty big deal, and Jeff Bezos was not happy at all. His company, Blue Origin, was not happy at all. They said, NASA has executed a flawed acquisition for the Human Landing System program and moved the goalposts at the last minute. They said it's a very high-risk decision, and they said their decision eliminates opportunities for competition, significantly narrows the supply base, and not only delays but endangers America's return to the moon. Because of that, we filed a protest with the GAO. The GAO is the Government Accountability Office, and they filed this protest less than 2 weeks after NASA awarded SpaceX as the winner of this $2.9 billion contract. Essentially, Elon Musk, he came out and tweeted, he responded to this saying, well, Blue Origin, they couldn't get it up. They couldn't get any rocket into outer space, into orbit. And basically he's saying, Elon Musk's company, SpaceX, they're consistently flying rockets into space. They're testing, it seems like every couple weeks, they have a new rocket that's being launched, testing something. And Blue Origin, we don't see that coming. We don't see all of these tests coming out of all the other space companies. We're always seeing SpaceX having new launches, new tests, but we don't see this with all the other companies. So basically, Elon Musk is saying, look, we're putting in the work. We're testing so many different crafts, and we haven't seen that from Blue Origin. So that probably is the reason why NASA selected SpaceX over Blue Origin, but they don't want to hear it, so they're protesting. Don't know if it'll change anything, but if they do make a recommendation, usually when the Government Accountability Office does make a recommendation, any company would follow that. So if they do make a recommendation for NASA to select two winners, well, then we'll probably see that. But if not, if they don't make any recommendations, nothing would probably change. Apple just announced a new $1 billion North Carolina campus and $80 billion additional U.S. spending. So this is a really big deal. A couple years ago, back in 2018, Apple said that they would invest $350 billion in the U.S. over the next 5 years, so between 2018 and 2023. But today, just the other day, they announced that they're going to be spending an additional $80 billion, increasing that $350 billion number by 20% to $430 billion. That's a lot of money that they're going to be spending solely in the U.S. to help, they said they're going to be spending this money with American suppliers, data center investments, capital expenditures in the U.S., other domestic spend, including dozens of Apple TV Plus productions across 20 states. That's a big deal. But the biggest part of this announcement is also the $1 billion new campus. They said they're establishing a 3,000 employee campus and engineering hub in North Carolina, and the commitment and this is a really big deal because a lot of tech companies are starting to look outside of California for other campuses. Google currently invested $1 billion in New York City campus. Amazon is building a second campus, a second HQ in Virginia. Oracle announced last year it's moving its headquarters from Silicon Valley to Austin, Texas. So we're seeing a lot of companies start to move out of California. And if they're not moving out of California, they're looking at least for a second headquarters, a second campus outside of the state. So this is a big deal. In this North Carolina campus, they said it's going to be part of the state's research triangle, which include like Duke University, North Carolina State University, and UNC Chapel Hill. They said it's going to create at least 3,000 new jobs in machine learning, artificial intelligence, software engineering, and cutting-edge fields, and other cutting-edge fields. So this is a big deal. I feel like this is going to be really big for the Southeast. Schools all around the Southeast. It's going to attract a lot of new people from schools like Duke, Vanderbilt, Georgia Tech, schools in the Southeast that are pretty big, pretty prominent schools. So we'll see what happens here. This is a big announcement, moving, having another headquarters out and increasing their spending by $80 billion, which is nothing to look over. That's a lot of money. Now Apple lets you add virtual lasers and confetti to your clip videos. So essentially, they're rolling out some new AR effects, augmented reality lasers, confetti, and other things to clip videos, thanks to an update to the short form video app called Clips. All you go is, you go on the App Store, download the app called Clips. The feature called AR Spaces essentially lets users with LiDAR-equipped Apple devices, so that means anyone with an iPhone 12 Pro and iPad Pros from 2020 or later are able to do this, and they're able to add room-filling effects that can interact with the walls and floors, essentially like you see in this little video, this little GIF right here. Looks like there's lasers. Looks like the people are in a club, but they're just in their living room. So this is just going to work with the other effects built into Clips. You have to have those certain devices, iPhone 12 Pro or iPad Pros from 2020 or later for it to work. But this is Apple's really latest experiment in the AR space. They've been taking a lot of interest in augmented reality, virtual reality. We'll probably see some sort of mixed reality glasses come out from them soon, but this is pretty exciting, and we'll see what happens if this is probably them starting to, signal and hint that they're really getting close to releasing those mixed reality, the AR, VR headsets. But anyways, that's really all I got for you guys today. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to get your 4 free stocks, each valued up to $1,600 when you download the Webull investing app using the link down below. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.